nobody's coming. It's up to us. And that has become literally my mantra as I get more and more into the civilian side. It's like, I want everybody to start thinking, nobody's coming, it's up to us. What do I need to do?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Perez.
And I'm Wesley Long.
And we're bringing you a fresh new take on disaster preparedness.
Welcome to Disaster Class.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Disaster Class. I'm Jason Perez.
And I'm Wesley Long.
And Wesley, class is in session.
Beautiful.
So we're very excited today because we have a good friend with us.
Yes.
We want to welcome to Disaster Class Rick Cummins, Director of Operations and Lead Instructor for the Flood Rescue Academy and a Paramedic Captain for Special Operations for Hamilton EMS. Rick, welcome to Disaster Class.
Thank you all. Good to see you guys again.
It is really good to see you again. So, yeah, we first connected with Rick back in, what was it, November 2021?
Yeah.
It was November last year.
Last year.
So it's been a year.
Yeah, it's been a year. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was at the Natural Disaster and Emergency Management Expo in New York City at the Javits Center. So we hit it off and we got to talk shop, so that was pretty cool.
Yep.
So maybe just to start us off with, Rick, I mean, we know we're good friends with you. We know a lot about you, but can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and your experience?
So believe it or not, I got into emergency services completely by accident. I graduated with a degree in wildlife biology, of all things, back in 1993 from Texas A&M. Whoop. I don't know how many Aggies are actually watching. So anyway, I was trying to find something in that field and ended up having to go to EMT basic school for the job I was in. I went straight from there to paramedic school because I was just really kind of eaten up with it. And then I was a volunteer firefighter at the same time. So I got sent to a couple of rescue schools and things kind of expanded from there. So I was on a swim team in high school. So when I started talking about water rescue, I was naturally into that. And so I started doing swiftwater rescue in 1999. I've been teaching it since 2006. I've been a paramedic now for 27 years. I just retired from one agency after 25 years last year and went to work at the job I currently have. I've been with the Flood Rescue Academy now for about 4 years. I've been director and lead instructor now for the past 3. We are currently branching out in that arena too. We're starting to work with a couple other groups that kind of the same thing that Instinct Ready does. We're trying to branch out more into disaster response, disaster preparedness. You know, the last couple of conferences I went to, obviously the one where I met you guys and a few other people, and then one right after that in Miami, has allowed me to start working with a bunch of groups all over the country. And, you know, just my new passion now is disaster preparedness, not necessarily response. And the reason for the preparedness side is I'm looking at it more from the civilian side of it. It's like, okay, what can we do to take the burden off the responders to where we're better able to take care of ourselves?
Correct.
Yeah.
So one of the companies I'm working with, I'm actually meeting them up in Dallas next month. They're very interested to hear the spiel, as they call it. So that's kind of where I'm at. And then when I'm not doing working or networking and all that, I'm a complete nerd.
That's why we get along so well.
You're in good
here.
company. You're in good company.
If I'm not reading history books or painting miniatures, then I'm one of those nerds that also likes to be outside hiking and backpacking. So I'm kind of a weird combination all the way around the board.
No, that's beautiful. Awesome. We're going to get to some of your background with that shortly. But how about this for a question? What types of disasters have you responded to?
So I was with FEMA Urban Search and Rescue for 14 years here in Texas. The first response I made was not necessarily a disaster in the way we think about it, but the first response was actually the Columbia, I guess, crash back in 2003. But the real eye-opening event where I went from 0 to 60 along with the rest of the country, that's where the learning curve really, really changed for everybody, was Katrina.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
So, and it's one of those, I spent the first day I was there looking at a major American city completely underwater going, okay, is this really happening?
Yeah.
Like, this seems theoretically impossible.
Yeah.
Like, you see it on TV, it happens in other parts of the world, but, you're sitting there looking at it and then you become a part of it. And we spent 2 weeks there, got rotated out, and ended up going back. And like I said, Katrina was a very, very steep learning curve. I've been to hurricane responses. We had one for Rita that year. We had a tornado response in 2006 down to Eagle Pass. The big one in 2008 was Hurricane Ike. That was a big one for us in Texas. And I mean, here and there we go out the door, but a lot of times, we go out, either we're not needed, which is great, not saying the disaster didn't happen, but it's always nice to we're like, no, hey, we got this under control. You guys can go ahead and take off and go home. Or, it wasn't to the scale that, some of the bigger ones are now. Like, you look at what's going on with the hurricane down in Florida right now.
Ian, yeah.
Yeah, that's something we haven't mentioned yet.
I was going to say Irma, and I knew that wasn't right, even though I've been seeing it on the news the last 2 days. That's going to be a big event for the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Very, very, very much so. And the one thing I know about Florida, having worked alongside some of their groups or even by reputation, is they're some of the best in the business at this. Mm-hmm. And they are still they're going to have a very busy few days, to say the least.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of my disaster response background.
So really,
I'm part of what's called a mobile incident or medical incident strike team now with my current agency. So I don't go out on the USAR side anymore, but we go out when they bring together ambulances from all over the state to do mass scale evacuations or casualty management or things like that. And recently we went out for the big tornado outbreak here in Texas in October.
Yeah.
And so that was my first thing with that. But my boss called me and goes, hey, can you deploy? And I said, yeah. And my wife's like, why did he call you? Because he knows I'm already packed.
Yep. Ready to go.
You're ready to go. So you've mentioned USAR, and just so for our listeners, what that stands for, Urban Search and Rescue.
So USAR is Urban Search and Rescue, or to kind of go off the military cliche of hurry up and wait. When we're sitting around doing nothing, we refer to USAR as useless stacking and restacking. But the official title is Urban Search and Rescue.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, that's the one we'll tell our listeners to remember.
Yeah.
So you worked in USAR. You've responded to several crazy. I mean, talk about 0 to 60 Katrina. That's that's probably one of the more infamous ones. So can you tell a little bit our listeners about Urban Search and Rescue, USAR? So as a responder, what are some of those things that you have, like you're being deployed to these areas that were just hit? So what are some of the things that you need to be prepared to handle on your deployments? Hey everyone, just want to pause real quick to thank Sawyer Products for sponsoring this episode of Disaster Class. Sawyer Products offer the best, most technologically advanced solutions for protection against sun, bugs, water, and injuries. Everything from water filtration systems to insect repellents. I personally have been using their water filters for years. So if you're at work, at home, or at play, make sure you check out Sawyer Products at sawyer.com.
I'll be honest with you, name it. Yeah. So you take Hurricane Ike, for example. I went out the door as a WMD hazmat specialist with our team. Mm-hmm. And over the course of that deployment, I didn't touch anything that had anything to do with hazardous materials, but I was a boat squad leader, search manager, and it was like just plug into anything, anywhere. So, we are trained in multiple disciplines. So if I go out on a deployment as a WMD hazmat specialist, I may not do anything that has anything to do with hazmat, but I may be doing the water side of it. I may be helping with logistics. I may be helping with medical. I may be just helping the search squads. You just plug in and be ready to go for anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a lot of cross-based training And a lot of us over the years took it on ourselves. If we weren't doing anything in our particular discipline, we'd wander over and just be like, hey, what can we do to help? Yep. We're here to learn.
Yep.
How do you use the shoring? What is it like to use the airbags, things like that. Almost everybody is required to take a structural collapse technician 1 and 2 over the course of their time with a USAR team. The interesting thing about USAR is it's urban search and rescue. And initially these teams were designed for earthquakes, building collapse. Mm-hmm. Katrina changed all of that in so many ways.
Yeah.
We had to go find boats to use at Katrina. We had none with us. Mm. Now, when you roll out the door of the USAR team, it looks like a small Navy rolling down the highway. There's boats galore.
Yep. Mm. See, that brings us to the next question then. As an individual responder, what gear, what supplies do you need, to keep yourself sustained on missions when you're operating?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of the politically correct way to answer this, but since I'm not associated with FEMA and USAR anymore, I could probably get away with a little bit. So the initial packing list we got for being on a USAR team, in my opinion, kind of covered the basics. But I can tell you right now, when you get down range, 6 pair of socks and 6 pair of underwear don't cut it. I doubled that amount. So you want to be self-sufficient you're basically going to be operating out of 2 different pieces of luggage, if you will. The first is going to be like a backpack or a smaller duffel bag or something like that. You want to be self-sufficient for, believe it or not, up to 72 hours out of that pack. Mm-hmm. They'll take all your extra stuff and put it in a trailer, and you might not see that bag again for 5 days.
Wow.
The logistics guys get really upset when you come up to them on day 1 going, hey, man, I need to get to my big bag. They're like, and let me guess, your big bag will be the one all the way at the back of the trailer at the bottom of the pile. So they really harped on that, was whatever you put in that first 72-hour bag, it needs to cover everything. So you're looking at all your toiletries. And I tell people, it's look, you take toilet paper in a plastic bag, because it's funny till it ain't. All your medications. If you have prescription medications, the last thing you want to do is walk up to the doctor on your team going, hey, man, I need my meds. They're going to look at me like, no, you need to go home. They got really adamant about that. And when I say medications, I'm like, take Benadryl, take Imodium. Again, it's funny till it's not. Take your own. Be able to take care of yourself. And also, it's okay, I've got downtime now. So it's did you bring a book? Did you bring a tablet to watch? Did you bring something to do? And I always carried a basic first aid kit, kind of like that pouch you were showing me earlier. Was, I don't need to go see the doc if I got a boo-boo. I can put a Band-Aid on there, antibiotic ointment, clean it up. And then my biggest thing as far as a luxury item I always carried a big Frisbee. You made a lot of friends if you had a Frisbee. Everybody was like, oh, man, we go play Frisbee. You dang right, we go play Frisbee. So, there was nothing on the packing list about clothes to sleep in, or maybe, you want to go for a run. So you packed extra shoes, things like that. You guys saw that USAR packing list I sent you. Mm-hmm. And that's based on years and years and years of experience. Now, the one thing I will tell you, and this is an interesting thing, a lot of people in this line of work will tell you this. So let's say you go for an operational readiness exercise, not even deployment, but a 3-day thing. So on the way there'll be 3 people carpooling together. There was 3 of us that used to do this all the time. And it was hey, after that last thing, what did you add to your pack and what did you take out? We, go back and forth. It's I added another hat, more sunscreen, or I took out, the 8,000 whatever that I didn't need. I need to go do this. And then on the way home, it's so when you get home, what do you add in your pack? It's man, I'm going to take that stuff I took out and put it back in. And I'm going to add this, subtract. It's almost a constantly evolving process.
Yep.
Nowadays that I didn't have back then is I'll throw a solar charger, one of the small ones you can get. Yep. And I tell people, it's you cannot have enough charging cables. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing. And you better be able to plug them into a wall, plug them into a cigarette lighter, plug them into, I was but you can't have enough charging cables. Right. You get really popular. Oh, this will crack you up. So one of the first things I figured out to pack in my USAR bag, I think it's on the packing list. A lot of people were like, I would not have thought of that. And I was like, that's why I'm very popular. It's 15-foot extension cord and a big power strip of plugs.
Yep.
Because they'd be like, man, you got the only plug. Oh no, man, I got like 20 here. It's got like USB and stuff. You become a cool kid on the block real quick. You got one of those.
Nice. See, usability.
Especially if you got extra charging cables. You're like, oh man, I forgot my cell phone. Oh, come on, dude, I got one. Go ahead and plug it in here.
Nice. How often would you go out and do those like little training exercises?
Oh, the operative, they were pretty much annual.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you're on a FEMA USAR team, I mean, you're still working your full-time job. We would have like monthly get-togethers. It was like mostly just go over equipment, do inventory, maybe a light training day. But the operational readiness exercises were pretty much once a year.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's such a, I mean, the importance of it on the responder end is obvious, you know, but now I'm trying to think of the takeaway for our listeners, right? Like you have, okay, people go and get their bug out bag, their go bag, like use it.
Yeah.
Go out in the woods, do an overnighter, like test your stuff.
Yep.
And like you said, as you're going out, you're like, okay,
tweak it.
We've gone through this.
Correct.
This is okay. Now, what am I going to do different next time?
Yep. Yep.
And you're making changes and adding things, taking things out. I mean, that's a great call out just for our listeners of just something very practical to do. Even if you already have a kit or you're looking to get a kit,
use it.
Use it.
Well, the thing is, not only use it, but, and maybe this is my own personal paranoia, but let's say I need a pair of trauma shears out of my SAR pack, which my SAR pack to this day still stays packed and in the trunk of my car because it's also my bug out bag.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go pull anything out of my bag to go take it and use somewhere else because I'll forget. I'll just go get another set.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If your bag is ready to go, keep it ready to go. Don't be like, oh yeah, I need some aspirin. I go get it out of my bag, or oh my God, I'm out of toilet paper because I'm too lazy to go to the store. I go get it out of my bag.
Yeah.
That'll bite you in the long run.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pilfering. That's what we call it. Go back.
Now, I will say this: if you want to get deployed more, unpack your bag and throw everything around the house. That way, when they call you, you're like, "Oh my God!" You're scrambling around everything. we used to joke around about that quite a bit. Was, oh my God, there's a hurricane in the Gulf. You think it's going to hit us? I was like, there's only one way to find out. Everybody unpack your stuff.
Yep, and no call.
Yeah,
and then we wouldn't get a call anyway. Be like, oh man. Now, if you were prepared and ready to go, we used to joke around. You'll never get a call. But if you're not prepared, that's when they'll be like, "Hey, we need you here in an hour."
Yep. So for our listeners, let's hope you are prepared, and then you never have to use the go bag.
Yeah,
right? That's the goal: is to never have to use it.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. So you're getting.
Well,
go ahead.
You talk about let's look at y'all's bag for just a second. I may be jumping ahead. So put it to the ultimate test.
Yeah.
You go out of town, like say you're going to run out of town for like 2 days. Go visit take only that bag, nothing else.
Yeah. So
what happens?
Yeah, we talked about.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. Yep.
Yeah, we were literally just talking about that. There might be a special
take
episode
only that bag.
soon.
I mean, it's like, oh yeah, my bag's ready to go. Prove it.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a case of craft beer that says you're gonna miss one thing that you either took out of that bag, or it's like, you know what? In spite of everything, I need to add a bottle of Benadryl.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you spoke a little. I just want to kind of jump back to something you said earlier about, you mentioned a little bit about Florida, and they're experts, right, dealing with these hurricanes and things like that. And we just see what's going on right now with Hurricane Ian and how just devastating it is. And so if you're being deployed into these areas where okay, there's not going to be all the amenities I'm used to. You have to be completely self-sufficient for 72 hours. And you said something about the burden on responders. So in your experience, and I know we didn't talk about this, but can you talk a little bit about that? Like, as far as resources, we've talked about the subject quite a bit on the podcast. We've mentioned it about how quickly those resources are just spread thin, and you've been in these really big disasters. What is the reality? What does that look like? And what do we want our listeners to really take away on how precious those resources are
and
rare. And it's like they may need to be the importance of being self-sufficient because, you know, we kind of take for granted someone calls 911 and you got help coming.
Right. Or this thought, right?
Yeah.
Speak to this, Rick. The everyday civilian who says, I don't need to prep because when something happens, FEMA will send food.
So let's see. Here's hoping I don't get any death threats from any listeners. So let's go back to Katrina. So when you think about Katrina, what's the first two words that pop into your mind?
Me, it's sandbags, but
there's a football team there.
Oh yeah,
oh yeah,
New Orleans,
the Superdome.
Okay, we threw everything at New Orleans. What about the rest of the Gulf Coast? They never saw anybody.
Yeah,
they never saw anybody. So there's a bumper sticker that's out there that a buddy of mine has on his car that says, "Nobody's coming. It's up to us." And that has become literally my mantra as I get more and more into the civilian side. Is like, I want everybody to start thinking, nobody's coming. It's up to us. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
Because your 911 system may be as damaged as your house.
Yep.
Okay. Look at the footage of that fire station in Florida that they've been showing on the news over and over. It's like, those guys are flooded out.
They're 4 feet of water. They're not moving wheels anytime soon.
Yeah. They're millions of dollars in a hole right now on lost apparatus.
Yep.
So first off, you got to ask yourself 3 questions. What can I do to take care of myself? Second, what can I do to take care of my family? What do I need not only to take care of me, but take care of the family? And then what can I do to start pitching in?
Well, Wesley, before we conclude this episode of Disaster Class, as always, there's homework.
Yes, we love the homework part, don't we? So we're hoping you can make sure you like, subscribe to Disaster Class, right? Leave us that 5-star rating. Give us a thumbs up. Please comment about something that you learned or appreciated from this episode. We really want to hear from you.
Yeah. And as always, if you have a question, you have a preparedness tip, a disaster story to share, send us an email at disasterclass@instinctready.com or send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. And doing so will put you in running to be featured on the show and win some cool stuff. So thank you so much for listening to Disaster Class. Stay educated.
Stay prepared.
Stay equipped. We'll see you next time. Disaster Class is part of the Readiness Lab, the home for podcasts, webinars, and training in the field of emergency and disaster services.